Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Premiership Quarter. Today, I'm going to be doing part two of my round 8 review called the Weekend Wrap Up. I'm going to be going through all 5 games from the weekend, not including the Melbourne versus Geelong game, as I did that in my Under the Light review. I'm going to be going through each game, talking about where I think the game was won and lost for the respective teams, as well as a little bit about how the game sort of panned out. And with that being said, let's get straight into the review. So we had Sydney versus GWS on the Saturday morning, not morning, but Saturday lunch game. And early doors, GWS lost Tom Green, and so their midfield automatically got 10 times worse. Not that bad, but he's really important to them and how they want to play. He's their real extractor in the midfield. He gets the ball around the ground superbly. He's a real tank in the midfield, and it's really, really hard for anyone to stop him. And so for Sydney, that's huge, and it was allowed them to get their game going. Their midfield really patrolled the game, and their transition game was absolutely excellent. I didn't watch a lot of this game. I was busy doing uni stuff, but it was I was able to catch a little bit from the KO highlights. Sydney's forward line as well just keeps on going. No one really stands out each week, but they just keep on getting goals consistently across the board. For GWS, the couple of players who had excellent years last year aren't at the same level as they were this year. Toby Green, for example, has only kicked 9 goals this year compared to his 66 last year. So he probably needs to stand up as their captain. Kieran Briggs is another who was a real reason to push them into the prelim final last year. He hasn't had the same form as he did in the back end of last year as just a couple to name. And I think for them to be able to get back to the best, they need that to happen. Then we had St Kilda versus North Melbourne on the Saturday afternoon game. It was good for St Kilda to get back on the board after 3 straight losses. It was against North Melbourne, though, so how much can you really take out of it? Their midfield was better than what it had been. I don't think they won as many clearances as what you would have hoped, but they're a bit more damaging. Sinclair played a lot more midfield time. I think he had over 30 touches and was able to hit the scoreboard as well, kicking 2 goals. Darcy Wilson was excellent, had over 20 touches and 3 goals himself. And then for North Melbourne, George Wardlaw was good, kicked a goal early, but could have had a couple more had things have gone his way. But outside of that, they've just really struggled. Nick Larkey had a poor night, not poor night, but poor day. I don't think he's been as good as he was last year. He dropped a few marks that he probably should have taken. But I just think North Melbourne have really, really struggled to start the year. I don't think that's a surprise either. They're just not as talented as a lot of other teams, and their youth is really, really not young, but it's very inexperienced, and they're being blooded very, very early on and being relied upon. And it's really, really tough to find that consistency week in, week out to perform to their best levels. Then on the Saturday night, the other game is West Coast versus Essendon, where Essendon came out winners by 6 points. I was able to catch small parts of this game because I was mainly watching the Melbourne versus Geelong game. But for Essendon to get the win is good because they weren't at their best. Zach Merritt had an exceptional game. He had over 25 touches and kicked 3 goals as well, so it's really good for him to hit the scoreboard, which is something their midfield hasn't really done. Thought Sam Durham is continuing his great season as well. And then Darcy Parish also probably had his best game of the year with 36 touches and 11 marks. So that midfield 3 was really able to take advantage of the West Coast midfield, specifically after Elliot Yeo got injured. I think he got subbed out with a groin injury in the end. And so that's really disappointing. I think it's come out he might miss a couple weeks. So that's going to be a big blow for West Coast. Outside of those 3 in the midfield for Essendon, Langford kicked 3, so that's good from him, 3 from 12 touches. Martin continues his excellent season off of half-back, having 32 touches. Andy McGrath has also been very good with 23. And then they also had Goldstein had 10,000 hit-outs as the first player to ever do so. So congratulations to him. For West Coast, I just think that it's going to be a bit of a struggle now without Yo. Their midfield is going to be a bit raw. You're going to have Kelly there, sure, but I don't know if Dom Sheed's going to be able to play his absolute best. He hasn't been very good so far this season. Tim Kelly was good. Duggan was also not too bad. He had 26 touches himself. But outside of that, you've got Barras and Witherden, two defenders who are the only other people to have over 20 touches. So it's going to be a bit difficult. Jinby hasn't been absolutely exceptional. Harley Reid wasn't at his miraculous best. And I think they're also waiting for Elijah Hewitt to get back. It looks like Noah Long, I think, is going to be out for a little bit as well, which is really unfortunate. And I think they're just going to have to continue pushing through this season. They're definitely not the worst team in the competition, either based on form or how they've played. And so that's good for them because it's a real improvement to be able to show that to their fans. That I just think they're going to need to move on now from this tough loss and go up to Collingwood at Marvel Stadium and really challenge them again because they are not fully fit at the moment. Then on the Sunday, we had Richmond versus Fremantle. Richmond just look really dour. There's not much you can really say to be negative about them because it's Uze's first year as a coach trying to implement a different system with a list that has been completely decimated by injuries. They lost Jacob Hopper before in the last week. They did regain Jaden Short, but how much can he really do when there's not really anything else to complement him? Without Shea Bolton having a crazy game, they just don't look like winning anything. And then for Fremantle, it was a really solid performance. I think both Ryan and Sarong had over 35 touches. I think it was 39 and 38 respectively. So just farming the ball around the back. Hayden Young was really, really good. I think he hit 2 goals. They were able to start five as the sub. And then when he came on, he was really good as well. And then up forward, Josh Tracy's continued his excellent season, kicking 4 goals. They were able to get some return out of, I think, Sean Darcy with kicking 2 goals. I think they were both from 50-metre penalties, though. So it's still a bit of a wait and see, in my opinion, with how he and Jackson worked together. But it worked against Richmond, and they look to build upon this and push for potentially a top 4 spot by the end of the year. We then had the Bulldogs taking on Hawthorn at Marvel Stadium, where the Bulldogs, in the end, I wouldn't say collapsed, but they certainly lost the game just as much as the Hawks winning it, where the Hawks were able to run over the top in the end by 7 points. It's very disappointing for the Bulldogs, and they're the model of inconsistency at the moment. There's a lot of pressure on the two coaches before the game, and there's certainly going to be a heap more on Beveridge now after it. They got Hugo Hagen back. Liberatore was back in the team as well, but their forward line has still struggled. They don't really know whether they're to play Darcy or Lobb or Hugo Hagen or Norton as the real key forward. And it seems that any two of them would work better than all three of them all at once. A lot of people keep saying Norton at halfback, and there's no harm in trying it because Hagen has been good by himself. Norton has also been good by himself, which makes it even more difficult because it's a bit of a problem now with Hagen where he was okay, I thought, against the Hawks. He struggled really, really early on and couldn't get himself into the game, but he had a couple chances late, kicked one out in the full from just outside 50. He just seems to get it in his head a bit too much. He's not as controlled as what you would hope him to be, given it's his 4th or 5th year in the league at the moment. And they're just really struggling for the Dogs. And then for the Hawks to get this win without Mitch Lewis, without Luke Bruce, without Mabior Chol up forward is really, really impressive. I think Kal Shadir kicked a couple goals in the end, which is a great story for him. They had to put James Sicily up forward. He got banged up down back, and he kicked a goal as well. They used the sub Nick Watson, I think, really, really well. He was able to provide a bit of energy that they needed to get them over the line in the end. And he had a couple good important moments late that were able to get them over the line. Their midfield was a lot better. Will Day hasn't been superb since his return, but he hasn't had to. I thought John Newcomb was a bit better than what he had been. And Lloyd Meek surprisingly had a pretty impressive day. I think he got on the scoreboard as well, which is quite important. That it's a really, really good win for Hawthorn, who now look to improve their ledger for the season to potentially go 3-5 or 3-6 against St Kilda down in Tasmania, whereas Hawthorn will have to struggle against, I think they play, who do they play? They play Richmond. So it should be a win, but it's not guaranteed. And then on the final game of the round, we had the Q clash between Brisbane and Gold Coast. Brisbane got absolutely decimated with injuries, specifically in the first half. They lost Starcevic before the game, like right before, I think, due to calf injury. And then they lost both McCarthy and Gardner to what looks like knee injuries, and then Ainsworth to concussion. It meant that a couple younger players that they wouldn't probably wanted to blood so earlier in the year got the chance. Someone like Logan Morris, who played in the VFL earlier in the day, had to play twice, and he actually kicked a goal, and I think he looked not too bad. Couple shots that he missed, he kicked one goal, three, so could have had an even better day. But there are a couple that they played who actually brought them a bit of youth. But the main two who were absolutely excellent were Dane Zorko, who normally plays well in the Q clashes. He's played the most ever, but still don't think he's actually won a medal for the game. And then also Dane Zorko, Lockie Neal, who had 34 touches himself. Hugh McCluggage was also excellent. And then to round out the midfield, Josh Dunkley had a great game. He was able to quiet Matt Rowe's influence on the game. He just couldn't really find the ball. And that means that Gold Coast weren't able to have the prowess out of the midfield they'd normally get with Witz's dominance. Up forward, they really struggled, I thought. Outside of Ben King, there weren't too many options. Jed Walter was on Harris Andrews for a lot of the night, and for a first-year play, it's a really difficult assignment. Ben Long kicked a goal, but only had 3 touches. I think he was the activated sub for Ethan Reid at half-time. He seems just a bit in the miss at the moment, Ethan Reid, but that's fine as a rookie. It's really hard to find your place as sort of that third tall, even though you are a backup ruckman. It's really, really difficult to adapt to the physicality of the league. And I think it's a poor performance overall, though, from Gold Coast, given the fact that the injuries Brisbane sustained, especially so early on. They were out early to a 40-point lead, I think, Brisbane. And then you thought at the start of the third that Gold Coast should really fight back, but it just never looked like they were able to get back into the game. Brisbane really controlled it really well, always had them at arm's length, and I think they patrolled the game very, very well, Brisbane, in what was a disappointing outfit of Gold Coast in the end. But that's going to be the end of this video. If you liked it, please hit the like button. It will really help push the video in the YouTube algorithm and help grow me this channel. Subscribe to the channel if you like this kind of content. There's going to be a bit more on its way. I've sort of found the rhythm and the pattern that I want to follow for my videos. Leave your thoughts about the round in the comments below, and thanks for watching.